5-minute penalty to Chicago, a game misconduct, and then Manson having words with Steven. And now Butcher gets into it. We're going to have a brawl, folks. Stand by.
Yo, what up, everybody? Tyler Cash here with another episode of Fourth Line Goon Hockey Podcast. Chilling in my apartment here in Las Vegas, Nevada. We just went through the NHL trade deadline drama, all that great shit. Catching up with my boy Tommy. How you doing, bud?
Good overall trade deadline. I think nothing like too unexpected, but I don't think we saw that big crazy trade that anyone was hoping for, but I think it was good all around, a lot of movement.
Outside of Claude Giroux, I'll have to agree. I feel like that was the big name that was moved this trade deadline. We saw Pavelski's name was thrown out there, and obviously he re-signed. I think it was a 1-year, $5 million extension. So he stayed place in Dallas. And then what was it? Hurdle was the big one. They got the extension, the full 8 years, 8 million AAV, something like that. So yeah, there wasn't as many big names, but I feel like Giroux is inevitably going to get moved.
Yeah, I mean, like in terms of those that like get moved and like a big deal and get re-signed, I guess the exception to that was like what Hampus Lindholm with the Bruins, but anyway, yeah, that's just my point. Nothing big splash, I guess, in terms of like huge deal, multiple like 8-year contract handed out, which really doesn't necessarily happen around this time of year anyway, but solid all around.
Well, then let's dive right into it, because we have a lot to talk about this episode as far as the trade deadline goes. And I feel like one of the biggest buyers this season were the Florida Panthers. Obviously, they feel like it's a all-in situation. I believe I saw somewhere that they don't have a first-round pick until 2026, if I'm correct. And as you mentioned before, I believe it was they don't even have like a second-round pick, right? For like,
they have 1 second-round pick at least the next 3 years. That's it.
Yeah,
so who knows if that goes somewhere.
They're in an all-in situation. They obviously have great goaltending, great forwards. The hit with missing Aaron Ekblad is where we're going to, I guess, start. I mean, that's going to be a big hit against the team. He took, I believe it looked like his knee had potentially taken damage in the boards. It's been a minute. What exactly happened to his injury?
Yeah, I think it was lower body for sure. They put him as what I think like week to week, but it was kind of like an awkward situation where he kind of like, I think he collided with like Barkov, and then it was like right in the corner, and then didn't look good.
Just unfortunate.
Yeah.
And they turned to veteran defenseman Ben Chiarot from the Montreal Canadiens as a possible replacement. Montreal got a first-round pick in 2023, a fourth in 2022, and a 20-year-old American prospect, Tyler Smilanic. I'm ruining that name. I know that Smilanic.
I think it was by tie, but either way.
Okay. So, so they got that haul for Ben Chiarot. I know Ben Chiarot's been floating around as far as connections to the St. Louis Blues. I think he only has a $4 million cap hit, so that was kind of the most attractive piece to him. And Florida is right at that trade deadline. The cap wall. So that was a good move for them, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, I mean, it was. Yeah, it's $3.5 million in the cap hit, so even a little bit lower than that. I think when you look at it objectively, giving up a first, a fourth, and a prospect for a guy that might only be there for a year, a little bit of overpayment, especially for a guy that's not, a game changer on offense. He's probably more of that 2-way defender type player. But that being said, depending on how deep the Panthers go, or if they win the whole damn thing, you look back on like this is the greatest trade ever, right? But yeah, I think the jury will be out on it for Thrashers legend Ben Chiarot. But either way, yeah, it's a smart pickup for them with Ekblad being out. I think it's one that kind of as a stopgap for them because they won't have the offense as Ekblad, but I feel like on the defensive side, somewhat on the same level, in my opinion.
They're going all in. So what is one more first round pick, right? If that's their last one for the next 5 years, it's not going to really help them completely rebuild. They were going to throw it out there for anybody that they needed, that they felt like could get them to win now. And I mean, that kind of is a good leeway to Flyers captain Claude Giroux. They also picked him up as a rental. There's no extension in place. The Flyers retained 50% of his salary. They also shipped out a 2024 fifth-round pick and 23-year-old forward Connor Buneman and Russian prospect German Rubstov, a Russian named German, if you could imagine that. But yeah, Philly received a 2024 first-round pick, a 2023 third-round pick, and former 10th overall draft pick Owen Tippett. Tippett is one of those players that I feel could bring a possible change to a team. He was at 10th overall. He hasn't really been a very good fit and hasn't really getting the ice time that he deserves. So maybe a change of scenery, especially going to a team like Philly, who, you know, they have no one on the roster really that is going to be hogging ice time. So why not give a younger guy an opportunity? And they just shipped out Nolan Patrick, obviously. So it's like, why not fill that void with somebody that's younger, hungrier? They might have something to prove. If it works out, it works out. But obviously the picks are a big haul for that. Who do you feel won that trade? I feel as both teams got exactly what they wanted from that.
Yeah, I mean, it kind of put it in a spot where the rumors were that Giroux was like, you know, I get to choose where I go. I want to go to Florida. You're not sending me anywhere else. You know, if Florida necessarily knew that or not, maybe that, you know, gives them a little more leverage on, you know, or excuse me, the Flyers a little more leverage or less leverage maybe to potentially get what they want, but they did still get a pretty good haul here. That being said, yeah, I mean, you got what you wanted. You gave up a good price for a veteran guy who spent all of his time in Philly, the captain of the Flyers, and obviously trying to win a cup, right? And Panthers, like we said, all in Ben Sherratt, Claude Giroux, and now it's a situation where you win the trade if you go deep. Same with the Sherratt trade, and if you don't, well, who gives a shit? Because, you know, they have, in my opinion, looking at their cap situation, they have one more solid year after this, and then after that, good luck is how I see it.
Yeah, it gets hairy from there. I know that the Panthers were both of our dark horses last year. They just had that horrible matchup against Tampa Bay in that first round. Obviously, Tampa went on to win their another cup. So when you lose to the Stanley Cup champions, it's kind of, you know, hard to feel like it was a complete loss, and you wonder how far they would have actually gone. I want to see a rematch. I want a Battle of Florida rematch, you know, considering the fact that Florida made all these changes and Tampa is pretty much the same team. I just would like to see another 7-game series to see where it would end up. Playoff hockey is right around the corner. We got about anywhere between 16 to 18 regular season games. So, I mean, we might see that matchup this postseason. That would be really exciting.
Yeah. I mean, it's a situation where I don't think you're going to, assuming anything drastic doesn't change, you're probably not seeing that till round 2. Because I'm going to assume maybe the Panthers Lightning spot places. I highly doubt the Panthers. Obviously, the Panthers aren't going to, I don't think it's going to shake out where the Leafs win the division or the Bruins win the division, and then it's Tampa, Florida all over again, personally. But yeah, that'll be a cool matchup if that happens again, for sure.
A big trade ordeal was Marc-Andre Fleury was traded from the Chicago Blackhawks to the Minnesota Wild for a conditional second-round pick. It was one of the weirdest conditional picks I think I've ever seen. It was something along the lines if Fleury played 4 games, or if they made it to the conference finals with him after he won the 4 games. I believe that becomes a second-round pick from a third.
Yeah.
It's hard to say that this is going to pay out for Minnesota. I know goaltending has been a huge issue. You and I have always kind of said Talbot wasn't the guy for them, and now we have an interesting tandem where Talbot's going to be playing out of his mind. We saw the other day when Fleury was first backing him up on the bench against the Vegas Golden Knights, Talbot shut him out 3-0. I think he got to start again tonight, so he's still their guy. Fleury isn't, you know, stealing any jobs yet, so if he winds up riding, you know, the Pine Pony, that might be a waste of, you know, the picks, and it's hard to say that Chicago didn't really fleece Minnesota.
I mean, look at it that way. You can look at it as Talbot saying, fuck you, this is my net, no one's taking it from me, and it's a win-win, right? That's kind of how I see it. Or if Talbot gets hurt, Talbot loses his mojo, you have a solid 1B guy to go to. So I think it makes sense for sure. And then they shipped out, I forget where he went. Kokkinen went to, I can't remember who he traded him to.
Was it San Jose? Somebody went to San Jose.
I thought it was something like that, but yeah, they swapped him out, which kind of alleviates that. Well, we have 3 goalies now. What do we do? But yeah, it makes sense, I think, for what they're doing. And like I said, no one's talked about it yet, except I feel like us. I brought it up as like starting next year, They have like a $12.5 million dead cap hit from the Parise Suter buyouts. Then the following 2 years, it's like $14.5 million. Like they're not like they don't have any money to do anything after this year. So like I'm honestly shocked. All they really did was bring in Fleury, quite honestly. But they're confident in their team and they think this is what they're going to win it with. I don't see it personally.
Yeah, I don't see it either. The goalie acquisition at trade deadline very rarely works out. As you said, it could be a little bit of motivation for Talbot, and I think that's about the most that they're going to get out of that. Maybe some jersey sales, maybe a little hype that being brought to Minnesota, which is a pretty traditional hockey town and a market that is rather boring, to be honest with you. They don't really change it up. They don't really bring in a lot of stars. I know Kaprizov is like the most insane thing ever to their fans, for the longest time. And
the longest time, dude's been around a year. Come on.
No, for the first time in a longest time.
Okay.
He was like the hype. I mean, what before that they had Zach Capri. Who did they have? They had the two dudes signed for like 13 years. They just bought out their contracts.
Yeah, Suter Parise.
Yeah, Parise and Suter. That's right. And that was all they had to look forward to, for so long. And now Kaprizov comes in. You have Fleury, who's making a big splash, at least in the locker room. He's going to be a good locker room guy, a lot of morale boost. I personally just love seeing him out of Chicago. And I also love that Chicago did not get a first-round pick because that was just insane. They got Fleury for literally nothing. They sent an AHLer over so that the Golden Knights could shed some cap space to bring in virtually Brossoit and Dadonov, which they, interesting enough, tried to ship out. We'll get to that here in a little bit. Yeah, I don't know, man. I'm happy for him. He's smiling. He gets to play hockey, and apparently this is where he wanted to go. He thought Minnesota was a contender. It's clearly a short flight from Chicago, so he doesn't have to uproot his family when it comes to his kids and schooling and all that great stuff. And I hope in the offseason, Fleury finds a landing spot that makes him happy and comfortable for the remaining of his career, because I don't think he's done yet. Dude looks great. I still think he's got a good 2-3 seasons in him.
I think he just comes down to family, like you said. If he wants to put him through that, if he wants to, just hang it up, I think that'll be telling, obviously, in the offseason.
All right, so the St. Louis Blues acquired veteran defenseman Nick Leddy from the Detroit Red Wings in exchange for 26-year-old defenseman Jake Wallman, forward Oscar Sundquist, and a 2023 second-round draft pick. No extension in place for Leddy, so essentially he's a rental. I imagine the team might be a bit concerned with Sundquist's injury-prone past, and they wanted to re-sign Perron, so that freed up that cap space a little bit. I do see a lot of Blues fans not happy with this trade, though. Why is that?
I mean, I think it's that situation where I feel like we've been the last few years relatively spoiled. I feel like in terms of who we've gone after, like 3 years ago, Ryan O'Reilly trade. Oh, this year we land Pavel Buchnevich, right? Like we've gotten some good guys in that way. And even you can go back to, it's not the same caliber, but like that Ryan Reeves trade for Oscar Sundquist and the first round pick, which is now Klim Kostin. We've been in good spots. And like, this was kind of a situation where we need something on the back end as a Blues fan. What do we do? And you look at it objectively and you say, okay, Leddy, they retain 50% of his salary. You ship out Sundquist. It's even swap there. So you're at a cap, basically at the cap as a team, even swap on the money. Totally good. Sundquist had that unfortunate incident where he crashed into Clifford last year, tore his ACL, had some hip issues, I believe, too. Hasn't been the same player since. Obviously recovery is different for everybody, but paying a fourth line guy close to $2.5-3 million a year, it's probably not the best thing. And that's when I can be okay with losing. Jake Wallman, jury's still out on him. He really never got a fair shake, less than a third pairing defenseman here, and kind of be in and out of the lineup. He's a guy that's really kind of trigger happy, I feel like, in terms of how he shoots. He's got a pretty good shot too, but that I think will be the key telling piece. And then obviously the second round pick kind of sucks losing, but you had to bring someone in. But point being is everyone in St. Louis hates Scandella. I don't want to say hates, but really dislikes him lately. He's became the Zach Sanford of this year, in a sense where Zach Sanford was just making why are you making this play? You're turning the puck over in your defensive zone. Mind you, Sanford was a forward and Scandella is a defenseman, so they could be a little bit better at that. But that's just kind of been the trend with him this year. probably not moving him at over 3 million with a couple more years left on the way that he's been playing. So now you have a solid guy where it's probably going to be like, cool, we're going to play whoever the top 6 best guys are. Yeah, that's not you, Scandella. We can sit you. We can't justify sitting you for Jake Wallman because he's a young dude and he's only getting paid league minimum, but we can justify it for Nick Leddy. So better play, or you're going to be riding the pine is kind of how I look at it. And for what it's worth, I think the game last night, the Blues played 7 defensemen because Tarasenko and Thomas were still hurt. And you got to look at everybody. And like Leddy ended up playing like 20, 21 minutes, looked pretty comfortable after the first period. And people were saying pretty positive things. But I think that's the thing is like, when you don't get that big trade, you're kind of like, who is this guy? It's like, why did we do this? But then again, you dig deeper. Guys played like almost 900 games. He's played over 120 playoff games, won a cup with the Blackhawks, went deep the last 2 years in the playoffs. Like, what more could you ask for a rental, in my opinion?
Yeah, especially coming from Barry Trotz and like a defense-oriented team like the New York Islanders, and they went deep 2 years in a row. He was essential to that. I think fans are really upset about Oscar Sundqvist. And I feel bad for the dude too. He hasn't been able to play completely healthy. As you mentioned, his ACL was an issue. I believe he had a huge concussion problem when he got hit by Tom Wilson in that preseason game a few years back. It looks like he went on to play his first game with the Detroit Red Wings, and I think he had like a +3 and like 2 points, a goal and an assist.
Yeah.
So good for him. And then obviously you get on there and you see Blues fans all over Twitter being like, "Oh, see what happens when you do this." Let me remind you though of a little name called Robbie Fabry, who wasn't doing jack shit for the Blues, and they traded him also to the Red Wings, and then he winds up lighting it up too. It's just a different team. I mean, eventually somebody's going to have to put the puck in the net, and when you're on a way less stacked team, you're going to get more ice time, you're going to get more opportunities. Oh. I love to see Oscar Sundqvist do well. He's a great dude. Obviously, he's always going to have that Stanley Cup asterisk on his resume, as you would say, and I think he's going to contribute very well to a team like the Red Wings, who are way far out of a playoff position, and the Blues need that veteran leadership now, as you said, and Leddy. I think that he's going to add that grit to your back end that they were looking for. And I know they were looking at Sherratt, they were looking at Chikrin, and the ship kind of sailed on that, so they had to move on from that.
Yeah, I was gonna say too. It's just looking back at that Robbie Fabry trade. Fucking Robbie Fabry for Jacob De La Rose. I think he scored like a goal for the Blues, and then like just was never good. But like it was a cap issue. That's why you get rid of him. And like Fabry's gonna be a probably 20, 30 goal scorer for years to come. And like, does that suck? Yeah, but
and he really wasn't doing that in St. Louis though. So sometimes a change of scenery, can do well for a player, and you're not really getting the power play time that you would. Or, I mean, that's a big factor.
And that was tricky for him too. Like, he had a great rookie year, almost put up 20 goals, 20 assists. Then like he got injured. I think he was the one who like tore his ACL and then had like complications coming back from it. And then it's like, whoa, what do we do with this guy? And obviously it's coming up like as an RFA and stuff. So it's like, yeah, we gotta move on.
Plus, if I remember correctly, the dude liked to party, right? Yeah. That was a huge thing too. Like always out and about in Clayton, downtown Clayton, whining and dining, and I don't know. But yeah, you're gonna see that. It's called graduation goggles, right? Like you're gonna see that person go on to do great things, and you're gonna wish that they were on your team. But overall, Leddy's the right move right now. They made it crystal clear that defense was their objective this trade deadline, and I feel like they did the right thing. Didn't have to give up a first round pick or anything crazy like that, which we were seeing. All these defensemen were fetching them. I mean, Chikrin, they were saying a first round pick, and he's a bottom pairing defenseman right now in Arizona. So it's like, well, not right this second. He's injured, which is also something that probably hindered the possibility of moving him at this trade deadline. Moving on. Anaheim Ducks forward Ricard Raquel was traded to the Pittsburgh Penguins in exchange for Zach Aston Reese and Dominique Simone, goaltender Callie Klang, and a 2022 second-round draft choice. The Ducks retained 35% of the forwards, 3.78 and change cap hit. The Pens add some forward depth. The Ducks continue their rebuild. I'd say it's win-win for both teams, wouldn't you?
Yeah. I mean, Raquel's an interesting ad just because, again, that's a situation where surprisingly, he's not even making like, oh, no, I think I'm like, he's making like 4 mil, I think.
Yeah,
Just retained
barely 4 mil.
close to it. Yeah. But it's like, yeah, again, that's kind of it seems like that's also sort of like a deadline ad. I don't know if Pittsburgh's necessarily going to, swap anyone in there, especially with like the Rays that's going to be coming to like Brian Rust. Maybe you ship out Kasperi Kapanen, who's an RFA. Maybe Malkin gives you a discount. You squeeze him in. I don't know. But if we're not re-signing him, I think it's a little bit of an overpayment. Like 2 fourth line, potentially third line guys that have been on your roster for a while. At the same time, a goalie prospect as well, and a second round pick seems a little steep in my opinion. It's kind of similar to like the Ben Sherratt trade. I feel like it's kind of how I compare it to, where same thing. If Raquel plays a big role and the Penguins go deep, everyone's happy, and if not, Ducks are like, cool, thanks for a bunch of prospects and a pick. You got nothing to show for it. So,
well, I think that was a Hagel, Brandon Hagel, that set the precedent for that. He got like 2 first round picks, and everyone's like, well, he's locked in for 2.5 million over the next couple of years. And that's the big thing, is all these teams were expecting a cap hit raise that never happened. So now they're trying to penny pinch the best they can. And, Rickard Rakell's $4 million, less than $4 million cap hit is one of the most appealing things. I saw they slotted him in as a third line winger. I guess they add a little bit to their bottom 6 with that. And the Ducks have, kudos to them. They've committed to this rebuild, and they've done it really well. They moved out Lindholm. They moved out Raquel. This is the last year on Getzlaf's extension again, that they extended him that 1 year. They've even thrown out Gibson's name, saying like, hey, we'll take interest in this now, probably because he's starting to get frustrated. He doesn't want to waste his best years. Like Carey Price, basically, like on the Montreal Canadiens, he's just going to be rotting there in Anaheim. So I wouldn't be surprised if we see Gibson move next trade deadline or in the near future, if someone's willing to part with a first round pick for him, for sure. So yeah, I don't know. Kudos to them. I think that the Ducks have a young core, and I think that they're going to continue to build and hoard these draft picks. I think you mentioned last time we chatted that they have an abundance of picks, right? There's like 8 in the second round or something crazy like that.
Yeah, the next 3 years, 8 in the second round, and they have four first rounders too. So, I mean, yeah, they're in a good spot. I mean, it'll be interesting to think. I don't think Getzlaf's the guy who wants to go sign somewhere else. I think if he doesn't, the Ducks don't want him back, or if he doesn't want to come back as this mentoring guy, even though he is the captain, he's probably done, in my opinion. So I get committing to it. I feel like the way they built themselves this year was sustainable in a sense, to where they could probably repeat what they've done. But at the same time, it was the core that you necessarily want to build around, with Lindholm and Raquel and Delorier, who went to the Wild, and all that stuff. And clearly they feel like now's not the time. We still need to build a bit more before we get there. And yeah, they don't have any major contracts on the books. I think like outside of 20, I'd like you go to 23, 24, they only have 2 players signed. Actually, 3 players signed, and that's Cam Fowler, Adam Henrique, and John Gibson. I guess Silverberg too, but he's injured. But
yeah,
there. Yeah,
I feel like the Ducks are doing what Nashville should be considering doing, because Nashville's kind of putting their 1 foot in, 1 foot out situation. They held on to Philip Forsberg, and they haven't really reached any sort of contract extension, and they were hinting towards shopping him this offseason. And I mean, if he winds up walking for nothing, then that's just going to hurt their rebuild all the much. I mean, I would assume that they might have some sort of contract extension in place that they decided not to talk about and concentrate on the postseason and the rest of this season. But I think the Ducks are doing it right. I mean, they're like, hey, if we make it into the playoffs and we make it in, like, and we get to play a little bit more hockey, hell yeah, but we don't feel like this is the right group that can go the whole way. So why buy the whole farm? And let's try to sell as many assets as we can to keep rebuilding for the future. I think that was the right move. And I think Nashville is gonna wind up coming back to bite Nashville in the ass, whether they pay Philip Forsberg an arm and a leg, like somewhere upwards of 11 mil, or they watch him walk to a team for nothing. I lost you. Your volume is muted.
Oh, my bad. I was gonna
there
say
it is.
I don't suspect him getting anywhere near 10, 11 mil. In all honesty.
You said that this last episode. We need to have a bet. Let's have a bet where I'm saying, okay, let's pick an amount, and you pick the over, the under, and we'll bet a beer on this. I bet you that he makes at least 10 mil.
That's insane on so
Okay.
many levels.
Okay, so you're gonna say lower than 10 million?
How are you gonna just? I mean, at least if he stays with the Panthers, the Predators, it's the wrong fucking animal.
Different cat.
How are you gonna justify paying a guy more than Roman Yossi, who's gonna be putting up probably over 100 points as a fucking defenseman, mind you, this year? No, even on the open market with the flat cap, I don't see it. Absolutely not.
Okay, so there's a bet in place here. There's a beer or a claw in place, or alcoholic Topo Chico, if you will.
So you're going over 10 mil?
Can I do 9.5? Or are you nervous about that? I'm saying nine. I'm saying over 9.5. You're saying lower than 9.5.
No way in hell.
Okay, so I want you guys to comment below or hit us up on Twitter and let us know what you think Philip Forsberg is going to make in the offseason before next year. Let's go with that. Continuing to talk about the trade deadline. We're going to miss a few of these, that's for sure. But we should probably talk a little bit about the surprises. My biggest surprise, I thought, was Phil Kessel not being moved. I know that the Arizona Coyotes went on record and said that they would be willing to eat 50% of his salary. And as we talked about on a previous episode, there's still some of his salary getting eaten by the Toronto Maple Leafs. So you're essentially getting him at a bargain steal, and they were only asking for a third-round pick. I don't understand why he wouldn't have been a viable choice for any team that's trying to make a deep run.
Yeah. I mean, I just wonder if the Coyotes like give us this, fuck it, we're keeping him. I also wonder how many teams actually inquired on him, because you don't really hear much. Same thing. Flip side, it's like I mentioned, like PK Subban before our trade deadline episode, and like I didn't hear a single peep about any interest in him whatsoever. So yeah, I mean, I think that speaks volumes to just, we don't want this super old veteran guy who's playing okay hockey. We'd rather just have someone else.
You're just too old. You're too old.
Pretty much.
I don't know. Yeah, I feel bad, man. Like Phil Kessel I think he still got some, tank some gas in the tank. And I saw, was that his sister took to Twitter and she was like, "Oh, nobody wants Phil the Thrill." Like, hashtag missing out was basically something along those lines. And I'm with her. And obviously Jacob Chikrin, what do you think happened there? Why they're like, "Hey, we'll hold on to him. No one's offering a first round pick because he's kind of hurt right now."
Well, I mean, they wanted way more than the first round pick for what it's worth. But yeah, it was probably like, "Oh, this guy's not healthy right now, blah, blah, blah." Try and, take him down in their price. And they're like, "Well, he's under contract for 2 or 3 more years. So we're not have to move him if you don't want to pay. So we'll hold on to him." So I think that makes sense. Like, I would love to see him move on and flourish elsewhere, but he'll sit in the desert for probably another year. If he doesn't get moved next trade deadline, I think he gets moved next offseason for sure.
Yeah, he's going to love the 3,000 fans cheering him on every night at the college auditorium. That's for sure. Another surprise, though. Boston Bruins re-signed forward Jacob DeBrusk to a 2-year, $8 million extension. That's a $4 million AAV, despite him continuously asking for a trade. I mean, this guy, throughout the season, it was like the beginning of the season, I want out. Halfway through the season, I want out. Right on trade deadline, I want out. Then they announced that they re-signed him, and I guess the idea was the team thought adding an affordable extension would make him more desirable to teams, thus easier for him to move. That didn't really work out. I think DeBrusk handled the situation really well. He said after the extension, and I guess after trade deadline, he's like, "Yeah, I still want to move on from this, but I'm playing in the NHL. I'm on a Stanley Cup championship contending team. I'm going to put my all into this." And I mean, as of recently, he's been slotted on that top line. He's getting power play minutes. So it's not like this team is sending him to the basement. I don't really understand why he was so unhappy to begin with. Do you?
I don't fully know the reasons either. I would assume he probably wasn't getting that playing time that he's getting right now in the past, and they're trying to, alleviate that to a degree. But at the same time, I mean, maybe it gets to a point where it's like, whatever, I'll keep playing. It's kind of similar to Tarasenko. Like, I feel like he still wants out of St. Louis to a degree, but like, I'm still going to play. I'm not going to half-ass it. I'm going to do what I need to do, and I'm not going to be a distraction. Like, I think that's exactly how you should handle those things. And yeah, I mean, maybe the Bruins think that they can keep him happy and they have a good, solid guy for $4 million AAV for the next couple of years too. Or you're able to flip him in the off season or something to to bolster yourself elsewhere. So I think either way, it's a win-win for them, assuming the trade works out, relatively even or in Boston's favor. But I don't see, unless he's, becomes a locker room problem, I don't foresee it being too much of an issue.
All right, so let's talk about it. The Vegas Golden Knights, Evgeny Dadonov ordeal. Okay, so unless you've been, sleeping in a basement and you haven't been paying any attention to hockey lately, there's been a big drama ordeal regarding the Vegas Golden Knights, the Ottawa Senators, the Anaheim Ducks, the NHL, you name it. Basically, the Knights tried to move out Dadonov in exchange for the contracts of Kessler and John Moore. So that would basically put them with an extra $10 million in LTIR because both those guys aren't playing. Kessler hasn't played since 2019. By all purposes, he's retired, right? But he's on the books, getting paid out, collecting that insurance money and all that great stuff from the NHL. I don't know, man. It came out today that the trade was reversed, and I know there's been some speculations as to who to point the finger, but as we saw, the NHL is being very hush right now. I think that was probably the shortest press statement I've ever seen out of the league. It was just 2 sentences. It was, this trade is not going through. This player submitted a 10 trade, no trade clause, and it's just not going through. But they didn't explain anything else.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, it's not on them to explain everything. Like, some of that stuff doesn't need to be out in the open, I guess, at this point, especially if we don't 100% know what the hell happened. At the same time, I mean, yeah, there's fingers to point everywhere. Cool. Did Ottawa get a trade, a no trade clause list from Dadonov, and then they traded him to Vegas, and they went on, and they're just like, we're just not going to do anything about this because he's not our problem anymore? Did Vegas never ask about it and just assume it doesn't exist? They assume he didn't file it, and no one wanted to bring it up or clarify with his agent or with Dadonov this entire time. Like, there's fault on both sides. It's like going on like Craigslist, like, oh, this car is really cheap for like $5,000. You like go to the guy, and it's like, this is a clean title, right? Like, everything's fine, no accidents. Yeah, of course. Just give me the cash. I'll fill stuff out. You'll get the title in the mail, and you get the title in the mail, and it's like, oh, salvage title. And you're like, what the fuck did I just buy? It's like, you can't necessarily take someone for their word. Like, you got to do your due diligence. And I get granted, there's probably some level of respect between GMs and teams in these negotiations. But at the same time, like, you can't just assume, like, and I get, cat friendly is like the Wikipedia of the NHL when it comes to contracts. But like, the fact that they have it listed on their site, and like that it exists and it's out in the open, and it's been assumed that he's had it before, to my understanding, like, how do you just forget about this, both from the Knights' perspective, both from the NHL's perspective, but at the same time, like, how do you not even discuss this with the player, or let alone never come up without any sort of action until deadline, boom, you're moving, and he's like, I'm not fucking leaving, and doesn't fucking leave. He pulls a Wolf of Wall Street.
Yeah, so. I'm not fucking leaving. I'm not leaving. No, I think he handled things really well, and he's continued to handle things. I don't think there's going to be any hard feelings. The way that I pictured it going down is like, they were like, hey, he's sitting in the locker room. I believe where were they at? Getting ready to play Winnipeg. Winnipeg or Minnesota, one of those two. And they were like, hey, you're not playing. We're trading you to Anaheim. He goes, oh, no. Yeah, I'm good. Yeah. They're like, what do you mean? He's like, well, I don't go there. I'm not going to Anaheim. And I mean, to be fair, I don't know. We'll never know. I saw that Joey Strickland on Twitter said that the fingers should be pointed at Ottawa, pending some league sources. But
Andy Strickland, mind you.
Yeah. So it's what I call him.
You said Joey Strickland.
Did I?
Yeah.
No way. Yeah. Oh my God. I'm not even drunk.
Feel free to edit this out if I completely misheard you.
Okay. No. I'm going to edit it, and I'm going to make sure that I replay that I was right. Okay. Or I'll put a clown nose on one of us right now. But yeah, so he said he thinks that the ball was dropped in Ottawa. Here's my thing. Why isn't this submitted with every trade? I mean, 2 trades went through the league and approved. Then they had to go back. People don't understand that. This trade was approved. The NHL had no idea of this 10-team. They knew it existed, but they didn't know like what 10 teams it was. I'm obviously not a GM of a professional sports team, so I don't even know how I would go about this. But my big thing is, how did the NHL not have this list in their hands, the first trade. And then now I do appreciate the scenario though, because I know for sure how the modified no trade works now. You get 1 year. It's every year. It's not even the season. It's every like July it's submitted.
Yep.
And it has to be honored whether you're traded or not. So that's very interesting. So like when Fleury was traded out of Vegas to Chicago, they could have theory traded him back because people are like, oh, well, what if Vegas is on his no trade? It wouldn't have been because they were the team that traded him. So you don't change your no trade clause as you move from team to team. It stays the same once every year. You get to update it, I guess, which I didn't know prior. So, the more you know in that scenario. But it's behind us now. The league ruled that the trade's not going to happen. And that kind of makes things a little sketchy for the Knights regarding having Alec Martinez and Mark Stone that are maybe on the mend. Who knows? They haven't really came out and said it, but they can't activate them now while they're struggling trying to be in that playoff hunt. So that very interesting. Dodonov is expected to play. They're not going to try to move him. I know people are like, oh, Shea Weber incoming from the Canadians. Because if they would move him, Dodonov would have to literally sit on his fucking fingers, and not do anything because he's not eligible to play even in the regular season. That's also a common misconception. It's not just the playoffs. You are ineligible for the entire remainder of the season. So I don't think they're going to go that route personally.
What's up, everyone? Tyler Cash here from the Fourth Line Goon Hockey Podcast, interrupting this week's episode to talk about one of our amazing sponsors, Schlafly Brewing Company. A staple in the St. Louis community for 30 years now, they have 4 different brew pubs located all over the metropolitan area, including downtown St. Louis, Maplewood, St. Charles, and most recently they opened a location in Highland, Illinois. From stouts and porters to lagers and IPAs, when it comes to delicious and refreshing beers, Schlafly has got you covered. Their Just a Bit Hazy IPA is an easy drinking IPA that will hit stores this February alongside their highly sought after Tasmanian IPA. If you know me, you know I enjoy a good dark beer, and their coffee stout is among some of the best I've ever tasted. If you're looking for something just a bit lighter though, their white lager is crisp and clean, as it's unfiltered and perfect for the domestic beer drinker that would like to transition to drinking more craft beers. You can download the Schlafly app on your phone to help locate and purchase their products all across the country. Be sure and follow them on Facebook and Instagram for constant new updates and information on all of their products. Schlafly beers are delicious and refreshing. Check them out. You won't regret it. This podcast is brought to you by 1 in a Million Handyman Services Incorporated. 1 in a Million is a family-run local company that's been serving the Las Vegas, Nevada area for over 15 years. They are licensed and insured throughout Clark County and travel as far as Boulder City, Henderson, Las Vegas, and North Las Vegas. 1 in a Million specializes in smaller home repairs, but also tackles commercial repairs. They've worked around the Strip, residential homes, commercial buildings, you name it, 1 in a Million has made their mark. With a 4.5-star Yelp review and countless of happy customers throughout the 15 years, you can guarantee you'll be happy with their services. All previous customers can refer an unlimited amount of friends and family for a $25 referral credit, which would come off of any future projects and or repairs if they decide to use 1 in a Million. This offer also extends to the Fourth Line Goon listeners. Mention this podcast and you will receive a $25 referral credit that will come off of the total cost of your repairs. 1 in a Million is open Monday through Saturday, 9 a.m. to 5 p.m., and you can find them on the web at juaninamill.com. That's JUANINAMILL.com, or you can also find them at juan.inamill on Instagram. 1 in a Million Handyman Services won't let you down. Check them out.
All right, so trade deadline aside, I know we missed a few moves, obviously. There was a lot going on. There's only so much we can cover, but let's talk about a little bit of some funny shit that's been going around the league. I feel like it would be wrong for us to not mention the Jets fan cupping a fart and then blowing it kiss style right in the Hawks fan's face. I guess that they were a couple attending a game. I uploaded the video onto Twitter and TikTok, and it accumulated over 1 million views. And actually they chimed in. They're like, okay, well, she's like, I deserved it. I was chirping them all night, I guess, when they were up 2-0. But if you guys haven't seen that video, it's it's next level. Honestly, I don't even know where that came from. I know people were chiming in. They're like, "Oh, that's the cup of soup," and I'm like, you sick fucks. I've never even heard of this before. Like, where does this come from? Um, I mean, what else is there to say? It's fucking gross and it's weird, but I mean, I guess it's good it happened to a Hawks fan, right?
Yeah, I'm happy with that, 100%.
But yeah, if you haven't seen that video, check it out on our Facebook and our Twitters and whatnot. I mean, I'm sure you have by now. All the hockey community is known about the cup of soup, the little broccoli cheddar sprinkle action that you got going from Panera Bread, little St. Louis Bread Company, little kiss and send. I don't know. All I know is that was a move, man, and they somehow caught that on camera. Like they caught that moment because you know how they're bouncing around like everywhere in the arena. They somehow caught that exchange between those two, and yeah, now they're immortalized. You know, right? They're a meme for the rest of eternity.
I think the other question is like, was he holding it in, waiting? Like, oh, I hope they score. I hope they score, and then like, oh, perfect. Here you go.
Yeah, like what are the odds that he needed to fart right when they scored? Honestly,
exactly.
The look on his face was like he'd been planning it since the beginning of the game. But you know, good for her. She's a good sport. You know, stood by her man. I guess I don't know. Jersey ads, something almost as gross as cupping a fart and blowing it into your girlfriend's face. They reared their ugly head. They what is it? The Columbus Blue Jackets and Safe Light Auto. Little patch right here in the top left corner. Absolutely disgusting, right?
Can we just like put a Safe Light patch on our shirts for next podcast?
Dude, we should sell. Yeah, we could just do Schlafly. Let's do like little. We could sell parts of our hoodie and be like, "Hey, what's up? Let's do this." I don't know. We got nervous because I think it was the Washington Capitals were the first to do it in the bubble on their domes, and then you were like, "Yeah, this is a slippery slope." And now we got it on the jerseys. And where do you think it's going to go from here, man? Are they going to start selling the jerseys with these logos on them, or what? Because that would be ridiculous.
I mean, I think they're probably going to slowly try to gravitate towards that because if they're able to theoretically, if they're able to sell the same amount of jerseys with these patches on it, theoretically they can get more money from these jersey sponsors as well. So it'll be interesting. I hope not. I'm gonna hope not too. Yeah, but we'll see.
Didn't you say that the soccer jerseys have the logos on them?
Yeah.
Oh my God. Like I just couldn't imagine like rocking that. And especially what if a team has like a Trojan sponsorship or something like, or Pornhub, you know what I mean? Cause like shit, OnlyFans. What if OnlyFans wants to submit a sponsorship to a team and it's just like right here? Or if it's all local shit and with Vegas, you got like strip clubs, like Little Darlings or something right here. I don't know.
I'm like looking at like, I know in like, for example, like the Chelsea Blues unironically of like soccer over in the English Premier League. And like years past, they had like right in the middle, like Yokohama tires. And like now it's just like their jersey number here in the chest or like stomach area. And there's just like a big giant like Hyundai patch on the left arm. So like, it's still noticeable. Is it out of the way? Yeah. Do I like it? Absolutely not.
No. So they're probably here to stay, but let's hope they keep it, you know, at least to the players on the ice and let us fans, you know, decide what else we want to wear.
You know how shitty that is like you have a chance to bid for charity on like a game used jersey and you have fucking Safe Light on it. Like that's the stupidest thing.
Yeah, that's lame. We both agree, and I'm sure the hockey community gets behind that as well. So yeah, that's jerseys. Toronto Maple Leafs, they unveiled their new reversible third jerseys in collaboration with none other than Justin Bieber. The Toronto Maple Leafs are believers, confirmed. They're wearing them right now. I believe the game's going on right now. I think they're sick, man, but I think the jerseys, there needs to be more black jerseys in the league. What is your take on this?
I feel like they rushed to it. Like they're supposed to be reversible jerseys and you fucking reverse the jersey and you just have this giant like tag and like inside out like information on the back of your neck now. It's like, come on. Like there's not a better solution to that. I mean, jerseys look good, don't get me wrong. It's just like this feels kind of rushed. No one really thought this through. Oh, no one's gonna care about that. It's like, why would I want to wear a jersey that shows the tag and like, I don't know, the size like on the back of it? It's just silly.
Right. Like they should have thought that out a little bit more. I think they had that collaboration with, I think he's some hip hop clothing designer, Drew something, and he's also working with Bieber, so that they worked with the team to make these jerseys. And I think it's, like they had when they had the influencers, like the TikTok guys, and then they had Machine Gun Kelly performing at the NHL All-Star game. I think they're trying to grow the game, which I think is great, regardless if I understand it fully or not. And I guess us hockey boomers just have to sit back and watch these kids kind of take over. I mean, I think it's good. I think it's good for the sport. I think it's good for the league, even if I don't get it. I know some people were chiming in. They're like the reverse, which was yellow. It had like Leafs, and it makes it look like a little smiley face. But I think that's that guy's like signature, right? Like the Drew, and people are like, oh my god, it's a little smiley face. It kind of looks like one of the stars from Mario Party.
Yeah.
And I don't know, it's a little goofy, so I don't think I would rock the yellow out. I think I would go black and blue. I think that's awesome. But as I saw earlier on Twitter, Bieber and his buds were at the game up in the box, obviously, and they're all wearing the yellow version out, which just goes to show you that that's what's in, I guess. And I'm not with it. I don't know.
Yeah, I feel that.
But anytime you can have a black jersey in the league, I think it's awesome. And the reverse thing's kind of cool. I don't know. Did the Leafs like reverse it after the second period? Are they allowed to do that?
Yeah, we're fucking losing tournaments out, boys. Like,
yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's the same color scheme. It's still black.
Sorry,
so.
That's the other thing that pisses me off with the reversible. You have a fight strap that's just gonna be flopping out in the back. Like, how fucking
shit.
How stupid is this? Like, come on.
I didn't even think of that. So I wonder if there's even fight straps on the ones they're selling to fans.
I would think if you're selling an authentic one, you'd have to have it.
That is weird. Like, where is that going to be? Like flapping around your balls? Like when you're pissing?
Well, no, it'd be behind you.
Oh, okay. So it's still behind you. Here I am thinking that's where my brain's at. So it would be behind you, but it would be out and about. So like when you're kind of taking a shit.
I mean,
you can
that
little
or
flat splash action,
pull you, tug you. It just looks goofy. I don't know.
I didn't even think of that. Yeah, that's a good point. I nonetheless, I would wear it just the one way. I don't think I would reverse it to the Super Mario Brothers star side with the smiley face. Is just not my type. But yeah, thank you guys so much for tuning in. We appreciate it. Obviously, we weren't able to cover everything regarding the trade deadline. There's about anywhere between 15 to 18 games in the regular season. There's teams making hell of pushes right now, especially in the Pacific and those last wild card spots. I know Dallas is making a run for it right now. The Knights are struggling. Dear God, I hope they pull it together sooner than later, man. Like this whole Dodonov thing is just more unnecessary drama, right? Like last year it was the goalie tandem situation. Then you got rid of that, right? Now we got a player in the locker room that doesn't even know if you want him there. And that's a bummer. But it is exciting nonetheless to see teams like the Rangers. They made a couple of moves at the deadline. The Panthers are a fun team to watch. I'm going to go out and say it. Rangers are the team that I would love to see win the cup this year. Like outside of the Blues, is there anyone that you're particularly interested in again? Or are you going to go all in on the Panthers as well?
I mean, I think obviously Blues and Panthers still. I mean, I think Panthers would be cooler to see them. Be interesting to see, I guess, the type of fans that show up to those games. Like, are they passionate or like, wait, what is this?
Are they going to have to start going to malls and handing out free tickets for like the Stanley Cup final?
To be fair, they've had much better attendance, like, and rightfully so.
Of course, right?
They're team in the league, arguably. And yeah, it's just be curious to kind of see what that dynamic looks like. Like, is it even going to be like a true like home ice advantage? Like, are fans even going to be that amped? Like, it's going to be quiet because you just don't really watch and don't know what's going on. If it's a Tampa, Panthers series, like, is it going to be all Tampa Bay fan? There's like all this shit that comes into play.
Well, the best thing that can happen to the Panthers is if Tampa's knocked out, because then they're going to jump on the whole Florida bandwagon, kind of like last year when the Habs were the last Canadian team and all the Leafs fans were like, oh, go Canada. Like, I can see it kind of getting to that. So it might turn into a party there in Florida, you never know. And that's if and when Tampa actually, gets knocked from the playoffs, but yeah, I mean, it would be fun to see the Panthers, but an interesting take is, as you said, their attendance has been better because they've been a better team. But I wonder if there's like anybody out there. They've been a team for like 25 years. Does that sound right? 25, 30 years?
I think between 20 and 25 somewhere.
Okay. So I wonder if there's anybody who just said, fuck this team. Like, like 15 years ago, they're like, suck my nuts. Like these guys suck ass. And then they just fell out of love with hockey. And then they started seeing them do well again. So are we going to Are there going to be boomers that are going to be like, oh, well, back in my day when we were throwing rats on the ice during that whole exchange? I don't know. Is there still old school Panthers fans? If you're a diehard Panther fan, can you please comment and let us know that you exist and that you've existed previously to the past 3 to 6 months? Because that would be great. I would love to know that. So yeah, that about wraps us up. We have a couple questions from the Twitter sphere. Question number 1 comes from DTank618. He wants to know who on the bubble misses and who on the bubble makes the playoffs. So I guess on that threshold line of whether they're going to make it or not, but not limited to Winnipeg, Vegas, Dallas. This hurts. I don't know, man. I get nervous. So today I was talking about it. Vegas oddly reminds me, what was it, the year before the Blues won the cup where they missed the playoffs by 1 fucking point when they were playing the Colorado Avalanche?
They just needed an overtime loss or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah, that's all it was. And man, if the Knights are going to make it, please tank the rest of the season. Please, like, just get that 10th pick, get it protected so that it doesn't go to Buffalo, but do anything but barely miss playoffs by like 1 point to where you're at that 11th pick and you still have to give it up to Buffalo. And that would really suck. So I don't know, man. I'm going to refrain from what I think on that. And I'm holding back, but I do think Dallas is actually an interesting team. I think, Holtby is a good addition, and I think that they've been making a valiant effort lately. So I wouldn't be surprised to see if Dallas makes it in. Winnipeg, absolutely not. I don't think they're going to make playoffs. Just my 2 cents.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I think is interesting about this year too, is you look at everything and the East is set besides seeding. Like, there's no fight for a wild card seed, even in the East. All eyes are pretty much going to be on the West. And with that being said, yeah, I mean, personally, I don't see how Vegas makes the playoffs if they don't able to get Martinez and Stone back in the lineup. And even if that's addition by subtraction and someone else gets hurt, like, I don't know if that moves the needle enough either. That, assuming that's the way things stay. But additionally, on top of that, I mean, I think the other option really is it's going to come down to those 3 teams: Nashville, Dallas, and Vegas. I mean, Winnipeg, they kind of sold off a little bit too, with like Cop and things like that in the deadline. And I would be hard pressed to see them in. If they get in, whoever plays them, assuming it's Calgary or Colorado, where they're seated, like, that sounds like an easy first round to win, quite honestly. Sorry to any Jets fans if they exist or listen in this podcast world as well. But yeah, I mean, my gut says Nashville and Dallas. If not, like, I mean, that's interesting thing is, like, Nashville, Minnesota, St. Louis could easily completely just keep switching. So I mean, even that wild card spot, you could see the Blues, you could see Minnesota. I mean, I'd love to have the Blues, quite honestly, in that first wild card spot, if I'm being honest, to get out of the Central and just have to focus on the Pacific with the Flames and the Kings and Oilers. I like that a hell of a lot more than I do having to potentially see the Avalanche again and deal with that bullshit. So
I think Nashville's a shoe-in. I think a shoe-in's the wrong word, but I feel like it's hard with that goaltending, and they have no problems putting the puck in the net. And as you mentioned, Roman Josi, I think he's on pace for like 95 points or something, like absolutely crazy.
Over 100 now, which is insane.
Yeah, I mean, I think that they're going to make the playoffs. There's no question of that. I don't think Winnipeg's going to make it. As you mentioned, Kopp got shipped out, and Hellebuck is proving that once again he can go through these weird streaks. He reminds me a lot of Tuukka Rask, where he just goes through these areas of time where he's just not elite, and then he's shut down. But I know he's let in 3 goals or something like that over like the last 10 starts, something crazy like that. And he's showing it early, which, I mean, even if they were to make it into the playoffs, it'd be a question if they even made it out of the first round.
Yep.
Last question. That guy, 448, solid Twitter handle, that guy. AKA Tim Ward. He wants to know, if we were the Vegas Golden Knights GM, what would our offseason plans be to get under the cap? Because clearly they're in cap hell. But you know what? I want to point out they're not the only team that's in cap hell. A lot of people have been dealing with this. They just have been dealing with it maybe not as well as other teams per se. That's kind of the thing about Vegas, right? They go after the shiny toy. So being a fan, that it's exciting because you know that your team's always going to be making moves. It probably pained them so much to not make a move this trade deadline.
Yeah.
They wanted, I'm sure they wanted to, but here's my thing. If there is a rumor going around that there potentially could be a Riley Smith extension in the works. And the way I look at it is if there's already an extension being talked about, or I don't know what degree it is, he's probably taking a team friendly deal because he wants to stay there. He wants to stay in Vegas. He's got a good relationship with Marchessault and Carlson. They've kept the Misfit line together this entire time. It's like the last remnant of like what the team was, and they think that they can use that to like keep fans happy or satisfied, and they have really good chemistry. And so I see Riley Smith staying. With that being said, I think that a few simple moves can help you. I think Dadonov, you can find someone to take him in the offseason. It might cost you more now because everyone's kind of like, oh, hey, we knew what happened to you. But you can move Dadonov, you can move Janmark, and that'll get you much, much closer to where you need to be. You can also move Brossoit, and you might even be able to get something for Brossoit. Honestly, like goalies are hard to come by, especially ones that are that cheap for a backup position. I could see them moving those three. I think that would be a good start to at least alleviating enough cap space to bring them back. And Alec Martinez is a huge question mark, man. Like an injury like that's scary. And I hope to God he comes back 100%. But if they're talking about vertigo and issues with that and his balance, I mean, as we spoke about before, these are things that have taken very talented players out of the game. And Martinez is a guy that's won 2 Stanley Cups. He really doesn't have much to prove anymore. He's a workhorse, man. He blocks shots like he's a fucking broadside of a barn. I mean, he gets beat up. So I mean, I'm not saying he might not want to play anymore, but if he's beaten up to the point where he can't, contend, then what's the point? So I could see that being a thing too. I could see Martinez maybe retiring potentially, or at least being on LTIR for the foreseeable future. And then regarding the other moves, I think Janmark is a good start, Brossoit, and of course eventually moving to Dadonov, who's been underperforming.
Yeah. I have 2 takes. First being, what the hell do you do here? I think it's going to have to be a combination of who's pretty much done for their career in, i.e. Martinez, but then also, who's bouncing out. And even with that, that's still not enough. You still have to make something else happen at that point, because you still have I think like at this moment, like 20 mil on IR, not LTIR, IR.
Yeah.
And another 15 mil on LTIR, and you're basically right up against the cap of it right now without activating any of that. So the question becomes, assuming Martinez stays there, you need like $20 million in cap space for everyone here almost.
So it's 15. That's what Cap Friendly posted. It's 15 million, which is Martinez and
see, I'm talking into the future though. I'm talking moving forward for what you're going to need and for what you're going to have to sort of probably take on or kill some people off of this roster. I think that's what you're going to need to be in a spot where you can still make that move at a deadline spot and things like that.
Be comfortable.
Yeah,
for sure.
And like my starting point would obviously be, and I think writing's on the wall with Dadonov, like he's out, he's done. I know you don't like it. I don't necessarily think it'll happen. I mean, you could get a hell of a haul for Carlson, who's been underperforming this year. Do you want to do it? I know your answer already is hell no, so we don't have to dig into it.
Yeah. But I could see that argument. I know a lot of people say that, but I just think it's hard to find a centerman for under $6 million that's going to potentially be in your lineup eating minutes. That's what people don't understand, is like people are quick to bitch about Pietrangelo because his numbers aren't where they were, but the dude's on the ice for the whole fucking game, and that's a big part of it.
And here's my hot take is the Golden Knights never should have signed Alex Pietrangelo whatsoever. Yeah. No, he's okay.
Where would they be without him right now though? Jesus Christ.
So that's the question, right? Like look at it like this. You'd be in the perfect scenario this year. Granted, you can't look ahead like 2 years, right? But like think where you're going to stopgap with someone else that was out there. I mean, I can't think of names the last 2 years that were out there that even signed like a 1 or 2 year deal, but like think this year where you could have traded and gotten Hampus Lindholm for 8 years, $6.5 million on a contract extension. Mind you, you could have shipped off Dadonov. You could have basically gotten Kessler's dead contract hit, could have gotten John Moore's dead contract hit, and probably send something else to Anaheim to make up for that. And then boom, we got Stone coming back. Martinez can make it work. Fantastic. We're ready to roll. Obviously, hindsight 2020, you're not expecting all these injuries, but that's my take. Or alternatively, it's like a Torrey Krug situation, right? Vegas' power play has always sucked. He's a great power play guy, better than Petrangelo, in my opinion. Petrangelo is obviously the better rounded defenseman. Would that make a difference long term? Who really knows? But that's my hot take. I don't think Vegas is the right place for him, especially with how Vegas is going to be up against the cap the next 2, 3, 4 years, and having a contract with a guy who's similarly sort of what cap hit of Roman Josi around $9 million, and you're putting it. Granted, it's nuts. You're putting up 30% of the point production that Roman Josi is. That's my take.
I think the mistake might have been more of a Martinez for $5 million, like because Petrangelo, he's just doing everything, and maybe when they're at a more healthy position where he's able to not be on the ice the entire fucking game and be out there for all these negative goals and all that stuff, and they have less of a demand from him, I think that he'll fall in a little bit better. But I don't know. It's really interesting because there's 9.5 million defensemen everywhere, and then we have 6.5 million this year. So it's like just a year ago they were overpaying for defensemen, and 8.5, 8.6 looked great to me. But now all these guys are signing 6.5 because the cap hit didn't go up, and it looks bad. But okay, but to answer the question though, you can't. Petrangelo's he's a lifer. He's got a full no move. He's got a million kids.
Correct. Yeah.
He's not going anywhere. So
I'm not saying you trade him. I'm saying
okay, but who do you get rid of?
That's what I was pointing towards. Like if my two is probably you ship out Carlson and you ship out Dadonov and you figure out the rest. That's my take. That gives you 10+ million. That allows you to activate Mark Stone. Martinez. Again, it's up in the air if he comes back or not. If Martinez is coming back, then it's like, well, shit, who else goes? But at this point, like that's the problem. Like you can't trade anybody except knowing, fuck you, you're done for the season. Like it's basically you're at the point where I think you have to just bite the bullet and be like, I pray to God, Mark Stone and Alec Martinez aren't coming back by end of year. And pray to God you make the playoffs. And if not, I think we talked about this like months ago too, where it's like trading for Eichel. It was like worst case, if you miss the playoffs this year, you're in a good spot for potentially at least the next year and take it from there. So
it's more about the future as far as I'm concerned. And honestly, making playoffs could potentially hurt their future because they'll lose that pick. Definitely lose that pick. As a selfish hockey fan, though, I want to see him make playoffs because I want to see it. And how amazing would it be? I know it wouldn't be amazing for you at all, but the entire hockey community would lose their shit if the Knights somehow make playoffs, and then day one, everybody comes back. You got McNabb, Martinez, Dadonov, who they tried to get rid of, but he's there now. And it's like they're like, hey, hands up, like we tried to get rid of him. We tried to go under the cap, and now we're sitting at basically the same thing Tampa did. And I think if they wound up making a tear in the playoffs this year, even short of not winning the whole thing, then the NHL is going to have to take a serious look at that whole rule when it comes to being cap compliant for the postseason, because that's just. I mean, as we're seeing now, it's too much drama, man. Like it's pissing everybody off. Tampa flaunted it. Now everyone's accusing everybody of doing it. And so I think, it's maybe time to revisit that rule and shut some people up personally.
Well, that's not going to happen for three more years till next CBA is which is like, I think after the 25-26 season. So,
all right, well, soak it in because, everyone's going to try to pull a Tampa because, I mean, they were pretty ignorant about it, like the whole middle fingers up, chugging a Bud Light, like the hats, the shirts. I mean, They made it obvious that they didn't give a flying fuck. And so maybe that's what Vegas needs to do. Like, instead of just trying to be like, oh, we're really not that bad, guys. We're not that bad. Maybe they need to just be like, screw you guys. Fuck you. It's not our rules. Like, we abided by what we were told. We tried to do this. And I think I told you this. I don't know if we talked about it on the last episode or not. Probably not, because this hadn't reared its ugly head yet. But I truthfully think Vegas was trying to do something right by shipping Dodonoff out, because they could keep Dodonoff in, and arguably he's doing great. He's got 5 goals in 7 games. Like, Mark Stone might not have even had five goals in 7 games. And so in theory, you're not really making your team that much better by bringing Stone back and shipping out to Donoff. Like, you're truthfully not. As much as I want to say that Stone could go into that locker room and moonwalk onto the ice and just everyone gets a hard on and then they just start scoring goals, that's just not how it works. And so, yeah, I think they were truthfully trying to do the right thing, and it just, came back to bite him in the ass. But yeah, thank you guys so much for tuning in. It's been a fun episode. We really appreciate you guys. We've been doing it every week now. We're lining up some new guests that we're going to have on here shortly. We want to say shout out to our sponsors, Schlafly and 1 in a Million Handyman Company. And yeah, check us out on Facebook, TikTok, Instagram. I've been uploading again to TikTok, but making sure there's no fighting. Okay, we don't want to upset anybody here. So we've been putting clips again on TikTok. fourthlinegoon.com. Anything else you want to add here, bud?
No, happy trade deadline's over. We can now stop pulling the what if card out. Oh, what if this happens? Oh, who's gonna go fucking here? Like, I'm glad that's over. That's the part. Like, it's cool, but it's just like it becomes overwhelming that last week. And it's like, I just want to fucking talk about it like we did today. It's done. We know where shit's at. And now we got like 20 more games regular season for each team to look at and see where the fucking chips fall for that first round.
Yep. Bring on playoff hockey, bud. I appreciate it. And yeah, cheers, everybody.
Later, guys.